Hello and welcome to ESL Revolution, everyone. I am your content creator and professor, Dr. B. Welcome back to the channel. It's been a while since I've done a public video. A lot of the videos I have been working on the last week or two have been basically video material for my classes that go into the undisclosed section of YouTube. They have the link, etc., but nothing too much in terms of the actual channel. But today I wanted to take a little bit of time. I don't know how much a little bit of time is with me. It could be 5 minutes. It could be half an hour. Who knows? But we are actually going back to class, basically for the first time since the beginning of the year. Actually, it's been an actual class. Like, we've had vacation time in there, obviously, in January, February, and then July and August. So that's 4 months. But we didn't have any classes in the first term. We did go back for 1 week for the final exams in person because the COVID numbers were down enough for us to do that, so it's great. And starting September 15th, we are going back into class for the first time to actually teach with our students. So I'm pretty excited about that. But it led me to think about something this morning that I want to talk with you about. And that is, what have I learned? What have I, as an instructor, learned about the COVID situation and the necessity of teaching during that time? How has it changed for me? And how is it going to change moving forward, even though we are back in the classroom? Well, as I have talked about in other videos, my online presence or my digital presence in teaching, that really became something I wanted to work through way back starting in about October of 2019. So I had already started putting things in place or getting things organized in my mind as to how I wanted to change and alter the landscape of my own teaching. And it was kind of serendipitous that I'd started this in October because, as I said in the previous video, a couple of months later, boom, COVID hits and all hell breaks loose, as they say. Coffee time, just a second. Nice. But that necessity of teaching online has led to some dramatic changes in how I engage in teaching, but also, I'm sure, a myriad and host of other teachers as well. Whether these are teachers that are in my own school or whether these are teachers all over the world, basically, I think that there has been some significant shift and movement. Now, we always hear about new educational theories coming out from time to time, new ways of looking at education. I think the practicality of COVID has shifted education in a very, very distinct way. Primarily because there really is not a lot of public theory on online education. There is research there, absolutely, don't get me wrong. But in terms of kind of the public consciousness of what that theory is and how you engage online learning, this is something that is really starting to slowly trickle out and be a part of teachers' mainstream consciousness in terms of how we approach education in a COVID world. And I think that's one of the first change. I shouldn't say the biggest change, but certainly a change has been the previously almost unheard of research over the last 5 or 10 years in terms of online learning. And now that has had a huge impact on public consciousness. People are starting to read more about online learning. So people are starting to train themselves how to do this. You can see this just through the sheer volume of teachers putting out fantastic work. I'm not including myself in that, by the way, but teachers who are putting out fantastic work in terms of educational technology, the standards and practices that teachers all around the world are now using and adapting to fit their own circumstances. I can think of one that I have really latched onto, the EdTech Classroom. I'll put a link in the channel below because I think his work is excellent, and some of my own videos and some of the way that I do things have actually been modeled on what he has done. Some of the programs that he uses in his classroom, I am now using in mine because I do find them to be very, very effective tools. So that's the first thing. The research for online education and video-based education has kind of come out of the woodwork. That's one thing that I think we can take away from this. Another thing that I think people are beginning to realize is, to be quite honest, how much teachers actually work. And for years I have heard stories about teachers not they're getting a free pass because they have summer vacation, or they only have to work until 3 p.m. Yeah, that's true. We have a summer vacation. Yeah, that's true. Our times are finished at 3, 4 o'clock, something like that, 4:30, 5. But I can assure you, just because the classroom stops doesn't mean we stop teaching. Doesn't mean we stop doing our jobs. Teaching is a profession, and teaching is a calling. And most of the people that I know exemplify that process and have equally done so during COVID-19. The number of discussions I've had with teachers who were, and this is not a reflection of my own school necessarily, but just generally, the conversation I've had with teachers from all over the world, that they have gone gung-ho into COVID teaching, and that they are, in all intents and purposes, retraining for the 21st century. And retraining in a way, and understanding new ways of engagement and new ways of information transfer to allow their students to also function within this new 21st century educational world that we have. And that's going to continue. That is not going to change just because I happen to be going back into the classroom next week. Which leads me to the third thing that I think I have learned over the last 9 or 10 months. The third thing is that once you learn these skills, they don't stop being used once you get into the classroom. And this, I find, something that I hope teachers will take away and bring into the classroom once they are there again. So what do I mean by this? Well, for example, the creation of the hybrid classroom, I think, is something that many teachers have now deployed and are using very effectively. And they're using a hybrid classroom within the confines of online learning. But the hybrid classroom doesn't stop just because our camera gets turned off and the Zoom class is over. Now that we're running back into an offline classroom, many of those things that we do and how we engage our students and the tools that we use to engage our students can then be flipped and used in that classroom scenario. Now, why do I think that's necessary? Because if I happen to be at school for a few weeks and boom, we get hit by another COVID crisis, guess what? All of my tools already exist and the students know how to use them. They are ready to go, and it makes shifting between offline and online very, very easy. So I think that's something that many of us can take away and continue to use those kinds of practices. The fourth thing that I've learned is that if you are a teacher that has been reticent to adopt technology, that is no longer an option. I know that sounds kind of strange, but I know many people who are technophobes, who are just very uncomfortable using technology. And I totally get that, by the way. I really do. I understand the anxiety that it causes. I understand the fear that it can cause. Interestingly enough, the teachers that I've personally helped kind of get into more of a technology-sided classroom, it didn't take very long for them to say to me, wow, okay, I get this. This is not overwhelming. My fear and anxiety have been misplaced. In fact, in many cases, that's exactly what they told me. That my fear and anxiety have been misplaced. Now I have a little bit of knowledge under my belt. I can do this. And I think that is a great testament to teachers who must take on a kind of a new identity for themselves in terms of the COVID classroom, and then can to use an Army phrase, adapt and overcome, right? And that's exactly what so many teachers have done. They have adapted to the new situations, learned new skills, as I've talked about before, overcome their fears and anxieties, and have been able to why am I getting? I'm getting some choppiness in my video. I hope it's okay. I'm not sure why that is. That's very strange. Let me just double check here. Do I got anything weird running here? Nope. Okay, that's all right. All right, we're all good. Okay. So that's something that that I think that I think on the positive side, those are all things that I can kind of take away from the situation. Now let's flip the lid here and talk about some of the more perhaps negative things that I have that I've learned about in the COVID classroom. We're at 13 minutes. I hope I won't go past 20 here. So one of the things I have felt is that the kind of personal relationship that you can have with your students, the eye-to-eye contact, the physical presence being in the classroom is something that has been missed by both students and teachers across the board. And I totally understand that because I've been feeling the same way. That being in the classroom, being able to kind of create those personal bonds of teacher-student have been really lacking over the last 9 months of COVID classroom. And so one of the things I'm really looking forward to, and I know my students are as well, is to get back into that classroom and to be able to have the physical presence of bodies in the classroom. I think is one thing that that I have missed and that I am very much looking forward to. Another thing, kind of a tangential to that, is body language and eye contact. Now, I know, obviously, being in a camera situation where you are looking at your students, you can see their eyes, but there have been so many distractions for students while they're learning at home. You know, their cameras here, their computers here. 10 to 1, most of my students are not always 100% focused in the class, even though lots of activities are going on. They're on Kakao Talk, they're maybe playing video games, they're doing research, they're studying for other classes within my online class. So that is something that is actually difficult to monitor. And so getting back into the classroom is a way for us to mitigate some of those side ventures that students take during the online portions of our class. A third thing that I could say is kind of a, not necessarily a negative, but well, yeah, a kind of a negative side to the COVID classroom or the online learning is, I guess you could say, preparation. And I'm going to say this in two ways. First of all, online learning takes a lot more preparation than being actually in class, which is strange, but it is true. There are technical aspects that one must constantly be vigilant on, in terms of, you know, do I have other programs running in the background that are going to run my computer slow during a Zoom class? For example, do all of the students have the appropriate link to my classes? Are the students having problems logging in to X program? Those are kind of technical things, but it requires constant preparation, and it also requires constant adaptation within the classroom. Now, this is true for, I think, any classroom, but when a problem hits in an online classroom, you really, really have to think quickly to resolve the problem. And it could be any problem. It could be simply that the students don't understand what the lesson is, thereby, how do I engage them in a way that they can then understand? Well, Papago is up on my screen constantly. Type a sentence in there, put it out in Korean so that they have something to gravitate to. They have some way of understanding what I'm asking. Because in a classroom situation, there are ways of mitigating that lack of understanding that you don't necessarily have in an online classroom. So that's one thing there. But to go back to something that I mentioned in terms of the positives, the idea of anxiety and fear and the overcoming of that, I think that's also a negative. That at least at the beginning, when this was happening, the overwhelming desire is to do and I felt this way too, to be quite honest. So I'm not like picking out anybody, but I did feel this way as well, and I really had to fight against it. That to do the least amount of work that was expected, but still continue the minimum, if that makes sense. And I had to fight against that myself, because, you know, it's like, okay, here's the standard that was expected, and I could have done that and there wouldn't have been a problem, but I didn't want to do that. And so it was, okay, how do I overcome that in my own mind in order to create something better for me as a teacher that I could feel proud of, and at the same time that my students could be better engaged in. So that's another thing that I feel that I've learned through this process in my classroom. And all of those things, I hope I will be able to take back and learn from once I get into the brick and mortar classroom again, the offline classroom. So it's 19:45, 19 minutes, 45 seconds. So I'm going to stop now. Those are a few things that I've learned about, things that I've been able to take away from with this particular crisis, and I suspect we'll be back here again in not too long. In not too long a time. I don't think we will be going through the entire second semester unscathed. Maybe so, maybe not. Who knows? But that's what I've learned. I'd be curious to know what you've learned. What things have you been able to? What big takeaways do you have from your COVID classroom? Anyway, thanks very much, everybody. I hope you've had a great day. Enjoy your weekend wherever you are. Please be well, and remember, be the revolution. Peace, everybody. Have a great day. Take care.